Many learners often consider 은, 는, and 이,가 to be the most difficult aspect of learning. Please note that these are some of the most complicated grammar rules in Korean. Even advanced Korean learners often get confused. One of the most difficult things for a new learner of Korean to understand is the difference between 는, 은, and 이,가. The most complicated grammar rules in Korean. The most difficult, the most baffling, probably the most confusing aspect of learning Korean. Hello and welcome to your Korean Teacher TV. In today's long overdue video, we're going to be dealing with, yes, the particles.
Run! Get to the chopper!
I'm pretty sure it was obvious from the get-go with all that over-dramatized intro. The particle we're going to be dealing with today specifically are the topic particles, 은, 는, and the subject particle, 이, 가. But rather than taking purely grammatical approach, we'll be tackling the biggest question, what to use, when, and why. No exaggeration, this probably for many of you Korean learners is the biggest, the most enigmatic question, bar none, in your Korean learning journey. This is the first of many videos to come on this specific topic, and we'll be taking a more contextual approach, figuring out why we use either the topic particle or the subject particle in a given situation in various conversational contexts. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what is probably the most conventional and most likely situation that you'll experience when practicing your Korean, either online or offline. Well, most of the time we start our conversations by telling the person we're talking to what our name is. My name is blah blah blah, or I am so on and so forth, what is your name? Now in this particular situation, which I'm pretty sure we've all experienced at some point, which particle do you think we should use? So I'll go ahead and start by saying I in Korean, which can be expressed in two ways, either 저 or 제. And which one we should use explicitly depends on the particle that follows. If you're using the topic particle, 은, 는, then we should use 저는. If we're using the subject particle, 이, 가, then we should use 제 and say 제가. Whether your choice is to use the topic particle or the subject particle, the rest of the sentence goes the same. 하나예요. 예요 or 이예요 comes from the verb 이다, which is equivalent to the copula be verb in English. Are, is, was, were, and will be. Now, if you have chosen a topic particle, 저는 하나예요, to be used when introducing oneself to another, you are most definitely correct. Now, B, 제가 하나예요, is totally fine grammatically, and there are situations in which B, 제가, has to be used, but not when you're just telling someone what your name is. Let's take a more in-depth look at how these two are different. When using the topic particle 저는, you're basically designating I, 저, as the topic of the sentence. So whatever that follows will be additional information on what this person has done, what this person is, so on and so forth. When you say 저는 하나예요, there really isn't a single element of the sentence that is being emphasized or highlighted more so than other elements. The sentence that we're dealing with is pretty basic. If you disregard the particle and the verb, there are only two elements to be considered: 저, I, and 하나, Hannah. By using the topic particle 는, the weight or any emphasis being conveyed gets evenly distributed. In other words, what you get is a very general declarative statement that translates to I am Hannah. My name is Hannah. Now, on the other hand, if you choose to use 가, the subject particle, now you're designating I as the subject of the sentence, and this subsequently puts way more emphasis on I than the rest of the sentence. Although both sentences literally translate to I am Hannah, I would say a more accurate / precise interpretation of the second sentence, 제가 하나예요, that really takes into account the nuance behind the subject particle 가, is gonna be something like, I am the person called Hannah. I am someone named Hannah. It is as if you are responding to questions like, so who in this group of people is Hannah? Where is Hannah? Amongst all of you, who is Hannah? The questioner is not really interested in knowing what your name is, but instead she or he wants to know who amongst you is Hannah. So naturally, you'd answer this question by emphasizing that you, so I, am Hannah. And in order to emphasize I in the sentence, you have to choose the subject particle 가 and designate I, 제, as the subject. So topic particle when you're just presenting a declarative statement without much nuance, and subject particle when you are highlighting, putting more emphasis on the subject. Another very often made distinction between the topic particle and the subject particle is that the latter introduces a new piece of information. Let's say a questioner poses a question, who amongst you is Hannah? Responding to that question by saying 제가 하나예요, you are simply providing a new piece of information the questioner was not aware of, that I indeed am Hannah. Then with that information in mind, try answering this basic question. 취미가 뭐예요? Or what is your hobby? Hobby or 취미 can be followed by either the subject particle 가 or the topic particle 는. Let's say reading books is my hobby. Reading books translate to 독서. So there are two ways to go about it. 제 취미가 독서예요, or 제 취미는 독서예요. Whatever your hobby might be, if you answer the question using the topic particle, 제 취미는, congratulations, you've chosen the most colloquial / natural way to respond to that question. Also keep in mind that by asking you what your hobby is, the questioner is effectively introducing the idea of basically talking about your hobbies, which is the reason why he's using the subject particle, introducing a new piece of information, a new piece of subject, basically. Since it is both explicitly mentioned and implicitly suggested that you guys are talking about your hobby, the most appropriate, the most colloquial way of answering the question is by using the topic particle. The topic of hobby is nothing newly introduced. Only the piece of information that you'll be providing on what your hobby is the matter of importance. So there's also no need for you to emphasize that it is my hobby that is reading books. You're just simply conveying information and making a general, not so emphatic, declarative statement that my hobby is reading books. But now, what about 독서 or reading books as your subject or topic of the sentence? If you start your sentence with the word 독서 and not 취미, which has already been established as the topic by the questioner, which particle should you use when answering the question, what is your hobby? 취미가 뭐예요? Unlike 취미, which is the established topic of the discussion, reading books is a new piece of information that the questioner is not aware of. It's a new piece of information that you'll be providing as your response to the question. So if you answered B, 독서가 제 취미예요, reading books is my hobby, then you're correct. Now, this is just one of many ways to differentiate the topic particle and the subject particle, but for sure is one of the most useful and practical one. Now, I'm going to give you guys a pretty basic but colloquial conversation piece with which you can kind of analyze, break down the particle usages that we just talked about. And you can also use these questions to practice coming up with your own answers using, without omitting, the particles. Like I said, this is first of many videos to come on this specific topic, the particle usage. So make sure to put to use what you've learned. You can only go so far with grammatical/theoretical knowledge. The only way to really substantiate your understanding of the use of these particles is through practical applications, trials and tribulations. No doubt that is the single most important catalyst that's going to allow you to build that bridge between your theoretical understanding of the particles and how it is used in actual conversations. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Go crazy. Ask your native friends to correct you. If you see a particle usage that doesn't really make sense and it's kind of hard for you to figure out by yourself, let me know. I promise you're not the only one struggling with this question of when to use the topic particle, when to use the subject particle. So there's absolutely no need for you to be afraid. Just embrace the grind. Enjoy the process, make mistakes, get help or correct your own mistake, and just have fun improving. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Your Korean Teacher TV, where you'll be able to learn many of these real-life practical expressions and vocabularies explained by natives themselves. And feel free to join our Discord Korean classes where you'll be able to interact with not only teachers but also like-minded, amazing, and welcoming Korean learners.